I stood on the porch of the house I'd helped my son buy, clutching a small gift in hands that wouldn't stop shaking. The December wind was a physical force, cutting through my thin coat and making my teeth chatter. But it was nothing compared to the ice in my daughter-in-law's eyes as she opened the door. "Matilda." Miranda's voice was flat. She didn't move, didn't step aside. She just stood there, a perfectly manicured statue blocking the warmth and light of the Christmas party I could hear roaring behind her. Laughter, the clink of glasses, the high-pitched shriek of my granddaughter playing, all the sounds of a family I was no longer part of. She looked me up and down, her gaze lingering for a half-second on my worn-out boots, still wet with melting snow. The disdain was so thick I could almost taste it. "Hello, Miranda," I said, forcing my voice to stay steady. "Merry Christmas." "We're busy, Matilda." "I know. I brought something for Eliza." I held up the small, brightly wrapped box. "I just wanted to drop it off. I won't stay long." If you're watching this video, tell me where you're from or what time it is for you. Miranda's eyes flicked to the gift. It was a first edition copy of Eliza's favorite storybook, the one I used to read to her every night. I'd spent 2 months tracking it down at a rare bookshop. "Eliza doesn't need more clutter," Miranda said, her voice dripping with condensation. "We're trying to teach her about minimalism. All these things are just a distraction." The rejection, so casual and cruel, hit me like a slap. I tried to recover, to find some common ground. "It's just a book, Miranda. Her favorite. I thought—" "You thought wrong." She cut me off, her voice suddenly sharp, a razor's edge in the festive noise. "She's moved on. She's into tablets now. You'd know that if you paid any attention." I flinched. I hadn't seen Eliza in 4 months. Miranda had made sure of it. Every call, every text, every attempted visit was met with a new excuse. Eliza was sick. Eliza was at a play date. Eliza was just too busy. "May I just see her? For 1 minute?" I whispered, hating the desperation I heard in my own voice. "I just want to wish her a Merry Christmas." "She's busy with her real family," Miranda said, emphasizing the word. "Your presence just confuses her. It's unhealthy, Matilda. All this clinging. It's obsessive." Through the gap in the doorway, I saw Brendan's brother, Martin, walk by. He was carrying a tray of drinks. He saw me, his eyes widened for a fraction of a second, and then he looked away. He just looked away, his shoulders tense as he hurried into the living room. My last bit of hope shriveled and died. Even Martin, who used to call me his second mom, had abandoned me. "Where is Martin?" I asked, grasping at straws. "Can I just speak with him?" Miranda gave a cold, triumphant little laugh. "Martin agrees with me. We all agree. Ever since Brendan died, you've been unhinged. You need to accept that he's gone. You need to let us go." "He was my son," I choked out. "And he was my husband, and he's been dead for 3 years. It's time to move on." Her voice softened, taking on a fake syrupy tone of concern. "Honestly, we're all worried about you. This behavior, it's not normal. I think it's time you sought professional help." She was building her case, just as she always did, painting me as the crazy, grieving old woman. "Please, Miranda, it's Christmas." "Which is exactly why you need to leave. You're upsetting everyone. You're ruining the holiday." She didn't even wait for me to step back. She just pushed the heavy oak door and it clicked shut in my face, sealing me out. I stood there, frozen on the mat, still clutching the gift. The sound of the deadbolt sliding into place was as final as a nail in a coffin. Tears were freezing on my cheeks as I stumbled back to my rusted 20-year-old car. I sat in the driver's seat, the cold vinyl stinging my legs, and just let the sobs take over. I'd lost Brendan, my only child, in a fiery wreck, and now I had truly, completely lost my granddaughter. A sudden, desperate idea hit me. Martin. He had looked away, yes, But he'd looked guilty, too. Not cold like Miranda. Just weak. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely unlock my phone. I found his name and pressed call. It rang once, twice, 3 times. I was about to hang up when he answered. "Matilda?" His voice was low, hushed. I could hear the party music in the background. "Martin, thank God," I gasped, clutching the phone. "Martin, she wouldn't let me in. She said I was unhealthy. She wouldn't even let me give Eliza her gift." There was a long pause. I heard him take a deep breath. "Matilda, it's not a good time. I know that. But she's lying about me, Martin. You know me. You know I'm not obsessive. I just love Eliza. Please, you have to talk to her. You're the only one who listens." Another pause, longer this time. I heard a door close, muffling the music. He'd stepped outside. "Look," he said, his voice clearer now. "This is all a misunderstanding. I'm sure it is. Miranda's she's protective, stressed, you know? She slammed the door in my face, Martin, on Christmas." Okay, listen." He sounded flustered, but also sympathetic. The old Martin. "I can't do this right now, not in the middle of this, but I'll fix it. I promise. Can you meet me? There's a diner, the old Starview Cafe on Elm. Give me an hour. I'll get away and we can talk. Really talk. We'll figure this out." A wave of relief so powerful it made me dizzy washed over me. "Yes, thank you. Oh God, Martin, thank you. 1 hour. I'll be there." I drove to the Starview, my heart pounding with a fragile, desperate hope. I found a booth, ordered a black coffee I didn't drink, and watched the clock. 1 hour turned into 90 minutes. My coffee went cold. I told myself he was just having trouble getting away. Miranda was probably watching him like a hawk. He'd be there. He had to be. At the 2-hour mark, my phone buzzed with a text. It was from Martin. "Miranda explained everything. I can't believe you'd try to manipulate me like that. She showed me the texts. You're scaring Eliza. You need to stop this, Matilda. For your own good. Don't contact us again." I stared at the words, my vision blurring. She showed me the texts. What texts? Miranda must have fabricated them. He hadn't been trying to get away. He had been reporting back to her. The meeting was a lie, a false lead to get me out of the way, to make me look even more unstable. He hadn't just abandoned me. He had actively, calculatingly betrayed me. Saint. I don't remember paying for the coffee. I don't remember walking to my car. The next thing I knew, I was driving, the windshield wipers struggling against the rapidly falling snow. It was over. I had no one. Miranda hadn't just isolated me. She'd turned the last person I thought I could trust into a weapon against me. She had won. I was completely, utterly alone. I'd lost my son to a car crash, but I was losing my granddaughter to a monster. I drove aimlessly, tears streaming down my face, the Christmas lights of my neighborhood blurring into a cruel mockery of joy. I finally turned toward my tiny, empty apartment, my mind a numb void of grief. I pulled into my assigned parking spot, the building's faded yellow lights doing little to cut through the gloom. I sat there for a long time, the engine off, the cold seeping back in. There was nothing left, no one to fight for, no one to fight with. A flash of impossibly bright headlights in my rearview mirror made me jump. A car I'd noticed vaguely on the highway, a dark, sleek shape, was gliding down the street. It was a Rolls-Royce. In my neighborhood of broken-down Fords and aging minivans, it looked like a spaceship. It glided past my complex, its engine a soundless hum. Then its brake lights flared. It slowed, stopped, and then, impossibly, made a smooth U-turn in the middle of the empty street. It was coming back. It didn't just come back. It sped past me, turning the corner I'd just come from, heading back toward the house. My house. A strange, cold feeling prickled my scalp. It wasn't fear. It was something else. A protective instinct I thought had died. What was a car like that doing at Miranda's? I didn't even think. My hands, acting on their own, turned the key. The old engine sputtered to life. I put the car in gear, my headlights off, and pulled out of the lot. I was following it. I kept my distance, 2 blocks back, my headlights off. The snow was falling heavily now, covering my tracks, muffling the sound of my engine. The Rolls-Royce was easy to follow, a black phantom against the white landscape. It pulled up directly in front of the house, parking on the street. It didn't pull into the driveway. Its engine stayed on, a low, powerful thrum I could feel more than hear, even from where I'd parked at the end of the block, hidden by a snow-covered pine tree. I sat there, my heart hammering against my ribs. What was I doing? This was crazy. I was the crazy old woman Miranda said I was, sitting in the dark, spying. But I couldn't leave. My eyes were fixed on that car. This wasn't a party guest. This was something else. The doors of the Rolls-Royce opened, not with the chaotic burst of a family arriving, but with the precise, coordinated movement of an operation. 2 men got out first, one from the passenger side, one from the driver's. They were huge, broad-shouldered, tall, wearing immaculate black suits and earpieces. They didn't look at the house. They scanned the street, their gazes professional and cold. One looked right past my car, his eyes sweeping the darkness, and I sank lower in my seat. They moved to flank the rear door, standing at attention. The back door opened. A man stepped out. He was tall, wearing an expensive-looking charcoal overcoat that probably cost more than my entire apartment. He adjusted his cuffs. He looked at the house, his head tilted slightly to the side. My breath caught in my throat. I knew that walk, that purposeful, confident stride. I'd watched it develop from a toddler's stumble to a teenager's swagger. I knew that tilt of the head. He did it when he was concentrating, when he was solving a problem. "No," I whispered, my breath fogging the windshield. "It's not possible. It can't be." The man looked up at the house, his face illuminated for a second by the festive lights Miranda had strung up. It was Brendan. My mind shattered. This wasn't grief. This wasn't a hallucination. It was my son, alive, standing 20 yards away from me. Brendan, my son, who I had buried 3 years ago. My son whose casket I had touched, whose eulogy I had given. My son who was dead. He was standing there, very much alive, and he looked powerful, dangerous. This wasn't the sweet-faced boy who'd left for college. This was a man with bodyguards. He didn't knock. He didn't ring the bell. He just walked up the path I had just been thrown off of, his men flanking him. One of the bodyguards, the driver, stepped in front of him and hammered on the door. Not a knock, a summons. The door flew open. Miranda. She had a drink in her hand, an annoyed look on her face, probably ready to tell off a rowdy neighbor. Her face went from annoyance to confusion to a slack-jawed, bone-white mask of terror. The glass dropped from her hand and shattered on the porch. "Hello, Miranda." Brendan's voice cut through the night. It was him. It was his voice. But it was cold, colder than the wind. Miranda stumbled backward, her hand flying to her throat. She let out a sound, not a word, but a high-pitched, strangled shriek that cut through the party music. The music stopped. The laughter inside died. Martin and his wife Sylvia appeared in the doorway behind her. Martin's jaw dropped. Sylvia's hands flew to her mouth. You're dead," Miranda whispered, her voice trembling. Brendan took a step into the light of the porch. He looked immaculate. His hair was perfectly styled. He looked wealthier than I'd ever seen him, and harder. The softness was gone from his eyes. "Plans change," he said. This casual, emotionless reply seemed to terrify Miranda more than the sight of him. This wasn't a joyful reunion. This was an invasion. What is this?" Martin stammered, stepping forward, then immediately stepping back as the bodyguards tensed. "Barrett? Brendan? Is it you? The funeral? We buried you." You buried someone, Brendan said, his smile a thin, sharp line. It wasn't me. Miranda was hyperventilating, her eyes darting between Brendan and his men. This isn't real. This is a joke. It's a trick. This can't be real. Oh, it's very real. Brendan glanced at an expensive-looking watch on his wrist. We have a lot to discuss, Miranda, and it's freezing out here. I suggest we move this inside. It wasn't a suggestion. It was a command. The family parted like the Red Sea. Brendan and his men entered the house. The bodyguards didn't follow him in. One stayed on the porch, by the door. The other walked calmly to the side of the house by the big bay window. They were securing the perimeter. I could see everything through that window. The living room, the Christmas tree, the shocked faces of the family. Brendan walked into the center of the room. He didn't remove his coat. He just stood there, taking it all in. The decorations, the gifts, the people who had mourned him. His gaze was analytical, devoid of warmth. This wasn't a homecoming. It was an assessment. He scanned every face. Martin, Sylvia, Miranda's mother, Pamela, who was clutching her chest. He looked past them all, his eyes sweeping the room, looking for someone who wasn't there. His gaze settled on Miranda, who was shaking so hard she looked like she might fall. "Where is my mother?" he asked. The question was quiet, but it landed like a grenade in the silent room. Miranda's mouth opened and closed. She was here," she stammered. "She left. She tried to force her way in, Brendan." She was hysterical. "She's not well. She's been obsessive about Eliza. It's not healthy." I watched Brendan's posture change. He didn't move, but he seemed to grow taller, colder. He turned his head slowly to face her. "Let me be clear," he said, his voice dangerously low. "You left my mother in the snow on Christmas." He stated it like a fact, a judgment. "Brendan, you don't understand," Miranda cried, her voice rising. She's been harassing us. She's not the woman you remember. She's losing her mind. Ask anyone. Ask Martin." Martin, who had been white as a sheet, looked like he was going to be sick. Brendan held up a hand. The room fell silent again. 3 years, he said quietly, almost to himself. 3 years I've been watching. 3 years I've been waiting. He looked at each person in the room, his gaze lingering, memorizing. 3 years of you thinking you won. Tonight? That ends. He turned to the shocked party guests, the cousins and aunts and uncles. "Get out!" The words were soft, but they had the force of a shotgun blast. No one argued. People scrambled for their coats, grabbing children, not making eye contact. The house emptied in less than 60 seconds, leaving only Brendan, his security, Miranda, Martin, Sylvia, and Pamela. Eliza, my sweet Eliza, peeked out from the hallway, her face pale with confusion. "Mommy, what's happening?" Miranda ran to her, scooping her up like a shield. Brendan looked at his daughter, and for a fleeting moment I saw a flicker of pain, of the man he used to be. But it was gone as fast as it came. He pulled out his phone, made a call that lasted less than 10 seconds. "It's done. Secure the exits. No one else leaves." Then he turned. He walked to the bay window. He looked out into the darkness, past the lights, past the falling snow, directly at the patch of shadows where I was hiding. His eyes found me. He knew I was there. He had known the whole time. And Brendan smiled. It wasn't the cold, sharp smile he'd given Miranda. It was his smile. The one I remembered, the one I thought I'd never see again. It was a smile of recognition, of reassurance, of rescue. He was coming home. He walked out of the house, leaving the chaos behind him. He left his men at the door and crossed the street, the snow crunching under his expensive shoes. He moved with that same measured, powerful pace. I sat frozen, my hands locked on the steering wheel, my mind unable to process this. My son, alive. He didn't try to open the door. He just tapped gently on my window. I fumbled with the handle, my hand shaking so hard it took 3 tries. The window squeaked as it rolled down, letting in the cold air and the impossible reality of my son's face. He was older. There were lines around his eyes I didn't recognize, a hardness in his jaw. But his eyes, they were the same. "Hello, Mom," he said. His voice was warm now, warm for me. All the ice, all the anger was gone. This was my boy. "Brendan," I whispered. It came out as a broken croak. Is it really you?" He smiled, a real full smile that lit up his eyes. "It's me, Mom. I buried you. I saw the... We have a lot to talk about," he said, his voice gentle, "but not here." He looked at my shaking hands, still clutching the wheel. "Can you drive? Or should one of my men take your car?" "I can drive," I said, though my legs felt like water. I was on autopilot, my brain just trying to keep up. "Good." He tapped the roof of my car. "Follow us. We're going to your apartment. It's not safe here." I watched him walk back to the Rolls-Royce. He got in the back and the car pulled away smoothly. I waited a beat, my heart pounding a frantic rhythm against my ribs, and then I followed the phantom car and my ghost of a son into the snowy night. Urs? The drive was a blur. The Rolls-Royce glided ahead, and I just focused on its taillights, a red beacon in the swirling snow. My mind was a whirlwind of questions. How? Why? We pulled into my apartment complex. Before Brendan even got out of his car, his 2 bodyguards were out, one heading to the front entrance of my building, the other to the back. They were efficient, silent. Brendan walked with me to the elevator. Up close, I could see the details. The fabric of his coat was impossibly soft. The watch on his wrist was a Rolex. But more than that, he looked healthy, strong. The son I remembered had been thinner, still carrying a bit of college kid scrappiness. This man was solid. "Your apartment, Mom," he said, his voice echoing slightly in the small elevator. When we got to my door, one of his men was already there. He nodded at Brendan. "Clear." The bodyguard opened my door and stepped inside first. He checked the main room, the kitchen, the bedroom, the closets. He was looking for... What? Bugs? Brendan saw the question on my face. "Just being careful, Mom. Please sit down." The bodyguard who had swept the apartment took up a position by the door. The other was in the hallway. I sat on my threadbare sofa, the one I'd cried on just an hour ago. Brendan sat across from me on my worn-out armchair. He looked out of place, a lion in a hamster cage. He took off his leather gloves, placing them carefully on his knee. He looked at me, his eyes full of a pain and anger that seemed years old. "I know you have questions," he said, his voice low. "I'm going to answer them. But first, you have to promise me. Whatever I tell you, you stay quiet. You don't react. You don't call anyone. You let me handle this. Can you do that?" I nodded, unable to speak. He leaned forward. 3 years ago, just before the accident, I found out Miranda was stealing from you." The words hit me. "What?" "She'd been practicing your signature. She had a credit card in your name. She was siphoning money from your retirement account. By the time I found the statements she'd hidden, she'd already taken over $40,000. My head spun. 40,000. That explained it. The bills I couldn't pay, the savings that had vanished. I thought it was just old age, confusion. I thought I was the one going crazy. I didn't know," I whispered. "I know, she was counting on that," Brendan said, his voice tight with fury. "She was counting on you to think you were just being forgetful." "I confronted her," Brendan continued, his eyes fixed on mine. "The night before the accident, I had the bank statements in my hand. I told her I knew. I told her I was going to you, to the police." "What did she say?" Brendan's face darkened. "She didn't deny it. She laughed. She told me you were a worthless burden. She said you were old, you'd be dead soon anyway, and that money was better spent on her and Eliza. She said the family would be better off without you. A cold dread settled in my stomach. This was worse than theft. This was a hatred I couldn't comprehend. That's when I knew, Brendan said. I couldn't just divorce her. I couldn't just have her arrested. She's too good, Mom. She's a professional. She would have spun it. She would have painted me as the abusive husband, you as the senile, interfering mother. She would have taken Eliza and we'd have never seen her again. She would have ruined us. He was right. I'd seen her do it on a smaller scale, with friends, with neighbors. She was a master manipulator. So I had to do something drastic, he said. Something she would never see coming. Brendan, what did you do? He reached into his coat and pulled out a slim, expensive-looking tablet. He tapped the screen. I knew I needed proof. I needed to show the world who she really was, but she was too smart to be caught in a simple lie. He turned the tablet toward me. It was a video, grainy but clear. Miranda. She was in an office sitting across from a man in a suit. My blood ran cold. I knew that office. It was Mr. Ramirez, the lawyer I'd used to write my will. I need to know my options, Mr. Ramirez. Miranda's voice came through the speaker, clear and professional. She's not mentally competent anymore. She barely remembers conversations. She's becoming a danger to herself and to my daughter. Mrs. Rodriguez, the lawyer said, establishing incompetency is a serious legal matter. It requires medical documentation. I can get that, Miranda said, without a second's hesitation. I know people. The point is, she has assets, a small life insurance policy, the apartment. If something happens to her, or if she needs to be placed in a facility, I need to make sure I am the one in control. For Eliza's sake, of course. I felt sick. She was talking about me. She was planning to have me committed. There's more, Brendan said, his face grim. He swiped to another video. I gasped. It was my apartment. This apartment. The video was from a tiny camera hidden in the smoke detector. It showed Miranda, dressed in black, letting herself in with a key. She was moving through my space, my private sanctuary. She went to my desk, opened my file cabinet. She pulled out my bank statements, my medical records, my checkbook, and laid them out on the floor, photographing each one with her phone. Then she went to my kitchen, to my pill organizer. She dumped out my blood pressure medication, counting them. She looked at the bottle, then at the pills, and a slow, cruel smile spread across her face. She had a key, I breathed, the violation making my skin crawl. She made a copy a year ago, Brendan said. She's been coming here regularly, documenting, stealing, building her case against you, staging a scene of confusion. See, officer, she can't even remember to take her pills. I looked at my son. This stranger who had just shown me my life was a lie. Brendan, the accident, the funeral. I saw them lower the casket. Brendan's eyes softened, and for the first time I saw the true cost of his actions. His voice broke. Watching you at that funeral, Mom. Watching you throw that rose. It was the hardest thing I've ever done. It almost killed me. He took a shaky breath. But it was the only way. The accident was staged. The car. It was mine. But I wasn't in it. The body. It was an unidentified man from the morgue. A John Doe. It's amazing what money can do, Mom. Bribes. Forged dental records. A very, very expensive private investigator who specializes in disappearances. So you just died. I died, he confirmed. So I could get away from her. So I could build a new life, a new identity. So I could make enough money to fight her. And so I could give her exactly what she wanted, a world without me. I had to see what she would do, Mom. I had to give her the rope to hang herself. My mind was reeling. A fake death, a new identity. So the Rolls-Royce, the suits. I'm in the import-export business, he said with a small, grim smile. It's very lucrative. I've been living in Europe for the last 2 years, under a new name. Building. Waiting. A thought struck me. But my bills. The last few years, I've been barely scraping by, but I always just made it. Last year, the landlord was going to evict me, and then suddenly my rent was paid. They said an anonymous benefactor. That was me, Brendan said quietly. I bought this entire apartment building 18 months ago through a shell company. I couldn't let you suffer. I've been paying your utilities, your rent, supplementing your social security. I had to stay invisible, but I never ever left you alone. The anonymous checks, the bank errors in my favor. It was him. All of it. He'd been my guardian angel, and I'd thought he was in the ground. Tears streamed down my face. You were watching me. Always, he whispered. I never left you. He stood up, pacing my small living room, too much energy for the tiny space. I've been watching her, Mom. Every text, every call, every time she lied to you, every time she turned the family against you, every time she told Eliza you were sick. I have it all. Recordings, videos, financial statements. For 3 years, I've been building my case. He stopped, his back to me, looking out my small window at the falling snow. Tonight was the last piece. When I got the alert from my team that you'd gone to the house, I knew. When she threw you out, I knew it was time. She'd finally gone too far. She gave me the opening I needed. He turned back, and the cold, hard man from the porch was back. Now, it's my turn. What? What are we going to do? I asked, my voice trembling. Brendan smiled, and it was not the smile of my son. It was the smile of a predator. We are going to get some sleep, and I am going to make a few calls. She thinks she's in her house right now with her family, thinking she just put down the crazy old woman one more time. She has no idea what's coming. What is coming, Brendan? A reckoning, he said. I've been watching her spend my money, live in my house, but she made a mistake. The house mortgage? I bought it through my new company, Momentum Holdings. The credit cards she's been using, they're linked to my accounts. The car she drives, it's leased in my name. He picked up his gloves, his movements precise. Tomorrow morning, I turn off the tap, and then we go back to that house and we end this. For good. I didn't sleep. I sat on the sofa and he sat in the armchair. We just watched the snow fall. I'd make coffee, he'd drink it. I'd ask a question and he'd answer it. It was the longest, most surreal night of my life. By the time the gray morning light of Christmas Day filtered through my blinds, he was no longer a ghost. He was real. He was my son, and he was here to save me. He had showered and, from a small, expensive-looking bag he'd retrieved from the rolls, changed into another immaculate suit. This one was navy blue. He looked like a CEO, a warrior. "It's time, Mom," he said, his voice quiet. Right on cue, my phone, which had been silent all night, lit up. A call from Martin. I ignored it. It rang again. Miranda. Ignored. A text. Then another. And another. My phone started buzzing continuously, a frantic, angry vibration on the coffee table. After the 10th call, Brendan picked up the phone. Let's see what they have to say. He put it on speaker and played the voicemails. The first was Martin. His voice was high, shaky. "Matilda, pick up. What is going on? Brendan was here." Or someone who looked like him. He was terrifying. "Miranda is falling apart. Please call me. I don't understand." The next was Miranda. Her voice was a hysterical shriek. "Matilda, you manipulative witch. What did you do? Who was that? You hired an imposter. You're trying to scare me. When I get my hands on you, I'll have you arrested. I'll make sure you never see Eliza again." Another from Martin an hour later. Okay, I don't know what to think. Miranda says her credit cards are all declined. Her car, Matilda, her car was just repossessed from the driveway an hour ago. What is happening? Is he really alive? Brendan listened to each message, his face a mask of stone. He saved the last one. He didn't play it for me. He just listened to it, his eyes closed. My phone buzzed again. A new voicemail. Brendan's eyes snapped open. He played it. A tiny, trembling voice filled the room. Grandma Matilda, it's Eliza. Mommy is crying. She's throwing things. She said Daddy came back, but he's not my daddy anymore. And the men took her car. I'm scared, Grandma. I want you. The message ended. Brendan stood up. The mask was gone. His face was a thundercloud of pure, unadulterated rage. He looked at me, his jaw so tight it looked like it might snap. It ends, he said, his voice a low growl. Today. Right now. What about Eliza? I whispered, my heart breaking for her. My team is outside the house. They have been all night. She is safe. But this is over. He held out his hand to me. Are you ready, Mom? I stood up and took his hand. It was strong, warm, and real. Yes. We drove back to the house in the Rolls-Royce. This time, I was in the passenger seat. His security team, now in a black SUV, followed us. When we pulled up, the house looked different. The Christmas lights were off. The curtains were drawn. But the driveway was full. Martin's truck, Sylvia's car, and a car I recognized as belonging to Miranda's mother, Pamela. Good, Brendan muttered. She called her family. She called the witnesses. We walked up the path. The bodyguard from the night before was standing on the porch, looking calm. He simply opened the front door for us and stepped aside. We walked into a war room. The entire family was there. Martin and Sylvia were on the couch, looking pale. Pamela was in a chair by the fireplace, wringing her hands. And Miranda, she looked like she'd aged 10 years. Her hair was a mess, her makeup smeared, her eyes red and swollen. She was wearing a dirty bathrobe. When she saw Brendan, she shot up, her face a mask of rage. You, she shrieked. Who are you? What do you want? Then she saw me standing behind him, her eyes narrowed into slits. You did this. You brought this imposter. Brendan's bodyguards moved in, flanking the doorway. They said nothing. They just were. Their presence sucked the air out of the room. Hello, Miranda, Brendan said, his voice calm and clear. Pamela, Martin, Sylvia, thank you all for coming. I asked you here because there are some things that need to be said. I didn't ask them, Miranda screamed. I called them because my life is falling apart. My cards, my car. You can't just... Sit down, Miranda, Brendan said. It wasn't a request. She fell back onto the sofa as if her strings had been cut. Brendan walked to the center of the room and set down a sleek, silver briefcase. He opened it. For the past 3 years, Brendan began, his voice a cool, professional monotone. You've all believed I was dead. You mourned, you moved on, but I've been watching. He pulled a small projector from his briefcase and aimed it at the large blank wall above the fireplace. An image flashed to life. It was a time-stamped photo. Miranda letting herself into my apartment. This, Brendan said, is Miranda 6 months ago, using a key she had copied without my mother's permission. Another photo, Miranda at my desk. This is her going through my mother's financial documents. Another, Miranda in my kitchen, holding my pill bottles. And this is her, documenting my mother's medication, no doubt to build a case that she was unstable and forgetful. Miranda's face was white. That's fake. That's photoshopped. He's lying. Pamela looked at her daughter. Miranda, what is this? He's lying. Am I? Brendan asked. He tapped a button on his laptop. Miranda's voice filled the room. The old bat is losing it anyway. If I can get her declared incompetent, I can control her finances and get her out of Eliza's life permanently." The silence in the room was deafening. Martin looked physically ill. "That's," Miranda stammered, "that's taken out of context." "Then let's add some context," Brendan said. He played another track. "I don't care which one. Find me the cheapest. One of those state-run places. The ones with high accident rates. She's so clumsy after all. It would be a tragedy if she fell." Sylvia gasped, covering her mouth. "Oh my God, Miranda." "She's not talking about me," I said, my voice shaking. "She's talking about a place for me." "She was," Brendan confirmed. He reached into the briefcase and pulled out a sheaf of papers. He handed them to Martin. "What's this?" Martin asked, his hands shaking. "That is a power of attorney, undated. It gives Miranda full legal control over my mother's life, her finances, and her medical decisions, to be enacted the moment she is declared mentally incompetent. Papers my mother has never seen." Martin read the document, his face draining of all color. He dropped it on the coffee table as if it were on fire. "Jesus, Miranda, this gives you control of everything." "It's a precaution," Miranda shrieked, finally finding her voice. "She's been acting strange. Everyone's noticed. I was just trying to protect her, to protect Eliza from her." "She's lying," Brendan said calmly. "Prove it," Miranda screamed. "It's my word against his, and he's a ghost. You all saw her last night. She's obsessed. She's crazy. Tell them, Martin. Tell them what I told you. Tell them how she's been harassing me." All eyes turned to Martin. He was pale, sweating. He looked at Miranda, at her twisted, hateful face. He looked at Brendan, cold and waiting. Then he looked at me. His face crumpled. "No," he whispered. "What?" Miranda's voice cracked. "No," Martin said, louder. He stood up, his legs shaking. "Stop, Miranda, just stop." "Martin, what are you doing?" she hissed. "He's not lying." Martin turned to the room, his voice thick with shame. Miranda's been saying things for months. That she wished Matilda would just disappear. That she was a problem that needed to be solved." He turned to me, his eyes filled with tears. "And I believed her. Last night, when you called me, I told her. I told her you were at the diner. I set you up. She told me to. She said it was the only way to prove how unstable you were." The confession hung in the air, a stunning, unexpected blow. Miranda's face went from rage to panic. Her ally had just become her executioner. "He's lying," she screamed. "You're all lying. You're conspiring against me." "There's no need to conspire, Miranda," Brendan said, his voice flat. "The truth is enough." He pulled out another set of papers. "Let's talk about the $47,000 you stole from my mother before I died." He passed the highlighted bank statements to Pamela. "Your daughter, the master forger." Pamela looked at the statements, then at her daughter, her face a mask of horror. "Miranda, this is your handwriting." "And when she ran out of money to steal from my mother," Brendan continued, "she tried to paint her as obsessive. Mom, do you still have the text she sent you yesterday?" My hands were shaking. I pulled out my phone and handed it to Sylvia. She read it aloud. "The family has decided it's best if you don't join us for Christmas this year. Eliza finds your visits upsetting, and we think it's time you focused on your own life." Sylvia looked up, her eyes blazing. "You sent this? We never discussed this. We thought Matilda was the one who didn't want to come." "She's a child. I was protecting her," Miranda shrieked, clutching her robe. "Let's ask her," Brendan said. He nodded to the bodyguard at the door. A moment later, the guard returned, leading Eliza by the hand. She was in her pajamas, her eyes wide and scared. When she saw Brendan, her face lit up in confusion. "Daddy." She ran to him. Not to Miranda, to Brendan. He knelt and wrapped her in a hug, burying his face in her hair. I saw his shoulders shake. It was the first time his composure had broken. He held her for a long moment, then held her at arm's length. "Hey, monkey, I'm back." "Daddy," she whispered, her hand reaching up to touch his face. "Mommy said you were in heaven." "I was far away, baby. But I'm home now." He looked over at me. "Eliza, look who's here." Eliza's eyes found me. She gasped. "Grandma!" She wriggled out of Brendan's arms and ran to me, jumping into my lap. I held her, tears streaming down my face, breathing in the scent of her. "Grandma," she whispered into my neck, "I missed you. Mommy said you were sick in your brain." Out of the mouths of babes, the room went dead silent. Miranda just stared, her mouth open. Brendan stood up. He stroked Eliza's hair. "Eliza, baby, I need you to go play in your room. The grown-ups have to talk. One of my friends will go with you, okay?" He nodded to the bodyguard. "Will Grandma come see me later?" she asked. "Yes, baby," I choked out, "as soon as I'm done." She went reluctantly with the large, silent man who surprisingly gave her a kind, gentle smile. The second Eliza was out of earshot, the atmosphere in the room turned arctic. Brendan turned back to Miranda, his face stripped of all emotion. "You have been living in my house," he said. "Our house," she spat. "My house," he corrected, pulling another document from his briefcase. "This is the deed. You defaulted on the mortgage 6 months ago. My company, Momentum Holdings, bought the note. You are a tenant, and you are 3 months behind on rent. You've been squatting." He threw an eviction notice on the coffee table. "You have 24 hours to vacate." Martin gasped. "Brendan, you can't—" "Watch me," Brendan said. "But the money," Sylvia whispered. How was she paying for all this?" "An excellent question, Sylvia," Brendan said. He pulled out another folder. "Let's talk about the $200,000 she collected from my Pinnacle life insurance policy." Pamela, Miranda's mother, finally spoke. "What? She told me you didn't have a policy. She said you left her with nothing." "I didn't," Brendan said, "and she collected 6 months after my death. Insurance fraud is a federal crime. Carries a 20-year sentence, I believe." He looked at Pamela. "That $10,000 gift she gave you last year, that was my blood money." Pamela looked like she was going to faint. "Miranda, you stole from your dead husband." "He's not dead," Miranda screamed, pointing a shaking finger at Brendan. "He's right there. It's not fraud if he's alive." "It is," Brendan said coolly, "if you knew I was alive when you cashed the check. But we can let the federal prosecutor sort that out. I have all the bank statements, Miranda, the wire transfers, the receipts from your trip to Hawaii." Miranda was backed into a corner, and she knew it. She started to sob, real, heaving sobs. "I did it for Eliza. I had to survive." "I had no one." "You had my mother," I said, my voice shaking with a rage I didn't know I possessed, "and you tried to destroy her." "She was trying," Brendan said, his voice relentless. He threw another packet of papers on the table. "These are the medical evaluations Miranda commissioned. 3 different doctors, all paid in cash, who wrote reports diagnosing my mother with dementia and paranoid personality disorder. Not one of them ever met her." Sylvia, who was a nurse, picked them up. She read a few lines and her face went rigid. This is malpractice. This is criminal. She's describing classic symptoms of senility. But she based it all on your testimony?" she asked Miranda. Miranda just sobbed, rocking back and forth. "She did it all for Eliza," Brendan said, his voice dripping with sarcasm. "She's a wonderful mother." He turned to the projector. The last piece of evidence from before. "I died. I had nanny cams installed. I was worried about her temper." He clicked the mouse. The video that filled the wall was devastating. It was Eliza, barely 2 years old, a toddler. She was crying in her high chair, having spilled her milk. Miranda's voice, off-screen, a venomous hiss. "Stop it. Stop crying right now, or I'll give you something to cry about. You are such a little brat. I am so sick of you." The video showed Miranda storming into view, yanking Eliza out of the high chair so roughly the baby's head snapped back. "Stop!" Sylvia screamed, covering her eyes. Martin looked away. Brendan didn't flinch. He played another, Eliza crying in her crib. "Just shut up, shut up, shut up!" Miranda's voice echoed through the room. He turned the projector off. The silence was terrible. Pamela was staring at her daughter, her face a mask of dawning, horrified comprehension. "Miranda, what have you done?" Brendan walked to the coffee table and placed one last document on top of the pile. "This," he said, "is a custody agreement. It grants me full, sole, permanent custody of Eliza. It terminates your parental rights. You will be allowed one supervised visit per month at a state-approved facility, pending a full psychiatric evaluation." "You can't," Miranda whispered, her voice hoarse. "I'm her mother." "You are a con artist and a child abuser," Brendan said, his voice flat. "And I have the evidence to prove it, so you have a choice, Miranda." He placed a pen on top of the papers. "You can sign this document, pack one bag of your personal belongings, and walk out that door. If you do, I will not pursue criminal charges for the theft from my mother. I will not report the power of attorney. I will not release the nanny cam footage to the police." He leaned in, his voice dropping to a deadly whisper. "But I will be filing the insurance fraud claim. You won't escape that, but you might get a sympathetic judge, given your cooperation." "And if I don't sign?" she whispered. Brendan smiled. It was the most terrifying expression I had ever seen. "If you don't sign," he said, "my man at the door will call the local police who are waiting at the end of the street and have you arrested for elder abuse, fraud, and attempted conspiracy to commit. Well, we'll let the DA decide. Then I will call the FBI about the insurance fraud, and I will give every single piece of this evidence, the videos, the audio, Martin's testimony, to the family court judge. You will be declared an unfit mother. You will lose Eliza, and you will never see her again. Not in a park, not in a picture, never." He tapped the pen. "Your choice." Miranda stared at the papers. She looked around the room, her eyes darting from face to face, searching for an ally. There were none. Martin was staring at the floor, his face buried in his hands. Sylvia was comforting him, her face a mask of disgust aimed at Miranda. And her own mother, Pamela, just shook her head slowly, tears rolling down her cheeks. "Sign it, Miranda," Pamela whispered. "Just sign it." Miranda's face crumpled. The manipulative, cold woman was gone, replaced by a cornered, rabid animal. She let out a guttural sob, a sound of pure, undiluted rage. She snatched the pen. Her hand was shaking so violently she could barely hold it. She scribbled her name on the signature line. It was a jagged, angry mark. She threw the pen at Brendan. It bounced off his suit. "You!" she screamed at me, her face contorted. "This is all your fault, you old bitch. I wish you had died. I wish you were in the ground with him." Brendan didn't even blink. He calmly picked up the signed papers, checked the signature, and folded them, placing them in his breast pocket. "Done," he said. He nodded to his bodyguards. "Ms. Rodriguez is leaving. Please escort her upstairs to pack one carry-on bag. Nothing else. You have 5 minutes, Miranda." "I want to say goodbye to Eliza," she snarled. "No," Brendan said. The word was final. "You will not traumatize her. You will not see her. You will just go." "She's my daughter." "She was your daughter," Brendan corrected. "Now she's my responsibility, and I will not let you poison her for one more second. Get her out." The bodyguards moved. They didn't grab her, but their presence was so intimidating she stumbled back. One gestured up the stairs. She shot one last look at me, a look of such pure, venomous hatred it chilled me to the bone. Then she turned and ran up the stairs. We all sat in silence. The only sound was Miranda, upstairs, throwing things, sobbing and screaming. 5 minutes later, she was marched back down, holding a small suitcase. Her face was puffy, her eyes empty. She was defeated. As she reached the front door, she turned back one last time. "You'll regret this, Brendan," she whispered. "She'll grow up. She'll ask questions, and I'll tell her. I'll tell her how you and that old woman stole her from me." "You do that," Brendan said, walking to the door and holding it open, "and I'll show her the videos. Goodbye, Miranda." He shut the door behind her, the soft click echoing in the silent house. It was over. The silence that filled the house was total. It was as if a hurricane had passed, leaving a stunned, quiet aftermath. Brendan leaned against the closed door and closed his eyes. The exhaustion of 3 years seemed to hit him all at once. He ran a hand through his hair, his composure finally slipping. He looked tired. So tired. Is it really over?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. He opened his eyes and looked at me. A small, real smile touched his lips. "It's over, Mom. She can't hurt you anymore. She can't hurt any of us." From upstairs, a small voice called out, "Daddy, is the scary lady gone? Can Grandma Matilda come see my toys now?" Brendan's smile widened. The exhaustion faded, replaced by a deep, profound relief. He nodded at me, his eyes shining. "It's over. Go to her, Mom. Go to your granddaughter." I stood up on shaking legs, and for the first time in 3 years, I walked up the stairs of that house, not as an outcast, but as a grandmother. I was home. I stood in a kitchen that smelled of chocolate chips and vanilla. Sunlight streamed through the bay window, illuminating the backyard where Brendan was pushing Eliza on a swing set. Her laughter, high and bright, was the new soundtrack of my life. We didn't stay in that house. Brendan had sold it along with all the toxic memories. He'd bought a new one, a warm, rambling house in a different town, with a garden for me and a big yard for Eliza. My guest suite was larger than my old apartment, and it was understood by all of us that it was my permanent home. The front door opened, and Martin's voice called out, "Anyone home? We come bearing pasta." "In the kitchen," I called back. Sylvia and Martin came in, their arms loaded with salad and a massive tray of baked ziti. Our Sunday dinners had become a tradition, a healing. "Hi, Aunt Matilda," their kids yelled, running past us and out the back door to tackle Eliza. "How's she doing?" Sylvia asked quietly, giving me a hug. We watched the kids swarm Brendan. "Better every day," I said. "She still asks questions, but we answer them, honestly, as much as she can handle." We'd found a wonderful child psychologist who was helping all of us. Eliza now understood that Mommy had made some very bad choices and had to go to a long time out to learn how to be safe. "Any word?" Martin asked Brendan, who'd come in for a glass of water. Brendan nodded, his face serious. "Trial is set for September. Miranda's lawyer is trying for a plea, but the U.S. attorney isn't budging. The insurance fraud is what's really going to sink her. They're projecting 15 to 20 years, minimum." Miranda had, of course, tried to flee. We learned she'd been arrested at the airport just 2 days after Christmas, trying to board a flight to a non-extradition country with a fake passport and $10,000 in cash. Brendan's security team had been tracking her and had tipped off the FBI. Her mother, Pamela, had cooperated fully, horrified by what her daughter had done. She was in therapy herself and had sent a long, tearful letter of apology. We were considering letting her see Eliza in a supervised setting. We all agreed. Eliza needed to see what a healthy family looked like, even if it was complicated. Later that night, after Martin and Sylvia had left, Brendan and I sat on the new porch swing. The kids were all asleep. "I never asked you," I said quietly. Why? Why faking your death? It was so extreme. Just for the money she stole. Brendan was quiet for a long time, watching the fireflies in the yard. It wasn't just the money, Mom, he said, his voice low. After I confronted her, I did some digging on her past, before me. A chill went down my spine. She had a boyfriend before me, an older man. His elderly father lived with them. The father had money, savings, a house. Brendan. She did the same thing to him, Mom. Isolated him. Told the family he was getting confused, paranoid. She got him to sign over power of attorney. And then, one night, he had a sudden heart attack and died. My blood ran cold. You think she... I think, Brendan said, his voice hard, that she was prepared to let him die. I think she saw an opportunity and took it. When I realized she was doing the exact same thing to you, isolating you, calling you confused, I knew I couldn't just divorce her. I couldn't just call the cops. I was terrified she would accelerate her plans. I was terrified she would kill you. He turned to me, his eyes full of the 3-year-old terror I'd only just glimpsed. I had to get you away from her, but she was watching you. So I had to make her watch me. I had to make myself the target. My death was the only way to get her to lower her guard, to show her true face, and it was the only way I could protect you. We sat in silence, the weight of his sacrifice, his terrible choice, settling between us. A small voice called from an upstairs window. Grandma. I looked up. Eliza was leaning out, her hair a mess, her favorite teddy bear clutched in her hand. It was the bear I had tried to give her on Christmas, the one based on her favorite book. Brendan had quietly gone back and retrieved it from the trash. I'm coming, sweetheart, I called. I went up to her room. She was tucked in bed, the bear beside her. I sat in the rocker by her bed. Grandma, she said, her eyes sleepy, I'm glad Daddy came back. Me too, baby. And I'm glad you came back too. Mommy said you had to go to a timeout too. Well, I said, smoothing her hair, we're all home now and we're not going anywhere. Is it forever? She whispered, her eyes drifting shut. I leaned down and kissed her forehead. Forever and always. I went back downstairs. Brendan was still on the porch, but he was at a small table, a laptop open. Still working? I asked. He smiled, closing the laptop. Just dotting the I's. The last of Miranda's assets are being seized tomorrow to repay what she stole from you. And I'm dissolving Momentum Holdings. That life is over. What will you do? I don't know, he said. Be a dad, be a son. Maybe I'll teach. For now, this is enough. I sat beside him on the swing. I'd started a new photo album. It was on the table. Not one of staged, perfect holidays, but of messy, real moments. Eliza covered in mud. Brendan asleep on the couch, exhausted from a tickle fight. Me, laughing, my face covered in flour. I had lost 3 years. But in doing so, I had gained a future I never thought possible. My son had come back from the dead, not just for me, but for his daughter. He had become a man I didn't recognize, so he could save the family I'd always loved. We were safe. We were together. We were, finally, at peace. If this story resonated with you, leave a like and consider subscribing. You can also drop any comment below, even just one word. Maybe tell me where you're watching from, or what time it is right now. Sometimes one word is enough to say you were here.